Working Class Beer Reviews is looking at Old Milwaukee, America's beer. Old Milwaukee was originally a product of the Schlitz, it says right here, brewed Joseph Schlitz Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. That does not, Schlitz still exists, but that's a Pabst brand now. And upon research, originally I always thought that Old Milwaukee was made in the 50s and it was a competitor to Busch beer. But upon looking at research, you know what, I do this sometimes. I forget to pour before I talk. So let's pour this real quick and I'll go about explaining this beer. I'm pouring into this tall, it's spilled. Shouldn't be spilling, but well, look at that carbonation. That's good looking, right? So we're gonna let that kind of settle while we talk about it. According to Wikipedia, it says it started in the 1930s. I was not aware of that. Although will say I've never really done a whole lot of research about it. I just always thought it was a competitor to Busch beer. Busch beer was Anheuser-Busch's, Budweiser's, budget offering that was offered in the 1950s. So this is Schlitz. Back then was a huge contender for top spot of the nation's brewery. But so apparently in 1930s Schlitz started making Old Milwaukee, and it was quite popular. But in the early 80s, Schlitz got acquired by Stroh's Brewing Company, and then at some point Stroh's got acquired by Pabst. I think it was in the late 90s, late 90s or something like that. It was acquired by Pabst, and then Pabst sold all their, made a deal with Miller in late 90s, or not long after they acquired Stroh's, and sold all their breweries and stuff like that to Miller, and started contracting everything through Miller. So Miller is based out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, so I guess the location's still correct, but it's not a Schlitz brand anymore. It's surprising that it still says that on the side of the can. Maybe out of tradition. It is an old brand, obviously, so if it is 1930, you're coming up on 100 years, so at least 90 years, over 90 years of production. 4.5% alcohol. You go to the website, you click on the beer, it doesn't tell you anything. It just says that they make Old Milwaukee Light, and Old Milwaukee NA. I can get this in 30 packs for around 18 bucks. I can get Old Milwaukee NA 12 pack for about 9-10 bucks, somewhere around there. I used to get Old Milwaukee Light, and I want to say it's under 4%. It's like 3.7 or 3.8, so it's pretty thin. And I've had it, but this is before I started doing video reviews. I actually did buy a 12 pack of NA. My wife and I did dry January to, that was kind of a thing, just go a whole month without any alcohol. And I'm sure it's good for you to take a break once in a while if you're a regular partaker of alcohol. It's good for your body to detox and go off of it. So I did buy the Old Milwaukee NA. I don't know, and I tried Bud Zero. I think it's Bud Zero. I don't know. It's like a placebo effect, I guess. So 4.5% is, I think it's in line with Busch. Busch may even be a little bit lighter. I know Busch Light's like 4.2, but I want to say regular Busch is like only a point something over it. There's not much difference between the two. Busch makes an NA as well. More and more companies are making non-alcoholic beers because I think there's a lot of people that, over COVID, I think there's a lot of people that started having dependency issues, or just when they start working from home, they're not really accountable. They start just day drinking on an early basis. So I think it became a problem for some people. So to have more non-alcoholic offerings, and I think the younger generations, as they're coming up into the age of consumption. They're just, I don't know. For some reason, it's a bit of a trend now that there's more NA offerings, and they're even making like non-alcoholic spirits and things like that. So there must be a demand for it. This is very sweaty already. It's like in the 90s. It got up to like 99 today, and then I know in some places I've heard from sources that it's gotten over 100. You know, someone told me that it got over 100. So yeah, what do you get? It's super clear, super straw colored. It retains a good head, so that's a good sign. Very Miller-like head looking on the top, very much like High Life. High Life's 4.7 or 4.8. This is 4.5, so pretty close. Yeah, very close to High Life. Very clear. I don't even see any particulate matter floating around in there. Let's give it a smell. I can actually smell a bit of a hop character to it. Yeah, just a slight bitterness, graininess. With a budget beer like this, this is going to be from extracts and syrups and whatnot. This is not going to be a malt driven, like whole malt driven grain profile. So this is going to have corn in it. Honestly, it smells like Pabst. That's who owns it now. So yeah, I get that character from it. Top it off just a little bit. 12-ounce can. That means this is probably, when this head goes away, if I was to fill it all the way with liquid, it'd probably be 14 ounces. There's a bit of a good strong base, nice wide flange. I like these especially for reviewing. You get that real narrow opening, really good for aroma. Really get in there and funnel it out. So let's give it a sip. Very clean, very wet. It's not a dry finish, for sure. It kind of lingers around. Very light grain. It's not strong by any stretch of the imagination. Not strong at all. Cool classic design on the can. You gotta give it to these companies that kind of just stick with what works. I think of Pabst, and a lot of companies have kind of gone back to a vintage. You know, Miller Lite especially has gone back to a throwback from like the 80s on their labels. Miller High Life doesn't really change a whole lot. Pabst doesn't change a whole lot. I don't get Schlitz in my area anymore. Bud and Bud Light have gone to a kind of a throwback-ish, like block labeling. It's a little more vintage-like. So, and I like it better than what they were doing before. Trying to think of anybody else who has, you know, Old English, Colt 45, their labels haven't really changed much. Ooh, a little bit of carbonation there. Mickey's, very similar label. I'm sure if you were to really break it down, you could probably see the differences in the updates. Busch had a throwback for a while, and they've kind of updated since then. I don't drink Busch very often. Honestly, I bought this, I saw this, seemed like I haven't done a review. 18 bucks for the 30 pack I thought was a good price for today's market. Put it in the cooler outside with some ice. Great for around the pool. Great for just everyday, just kind of enjoyment. Just your old-fashioned sandwiches and pizza. You know, you would drink this like you would any light beer, even though they make a light. If I see the light, I will go ahead and review it. I should get it out of the way, put it in the catalog. I do have some NA, not from like January, but I bought recently. I have a friend that is no longer, you know, he's kind of cut, you know, taking himself off from drinking alcohol. He wanted to hang out, and he told me, he's like, "No, you can drink beer if you want. It doesn't bother me none." I said, "You know what?" He wanted to go looking for crawdads, and I said, "You know what? I have no problem drinking NA. Do you drink NA?" He's like, "Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm drinking NA." It's like, I have no problem drinking NA with you. I'll support you. So I bought a 12-pack of that Old Milwaukee, and you know, it was fine. I had no problem with it. It serves a purpose, I think, or else why else would they make it? You know, I don't know if O'Doul's is still in production anymore, and who even makes O'Doul's? Heineken makes a zero beer. Budweiser Zero, Busch NA, Old Milwaukee NA. St. Pauli Girl makes an NA. Guinness, I think Guinness is making an NA now. They did have one, Guinness, the company had one called Caliber. Coors used to have Coors Cutter, and then there was, Miller made Sharps. Ah, that's an old one. So anybody remember Sharps NA beer? So I think for the health conscious, sometimes they'll do that. Although I will say a lot of the NA beers are not low in carbs. So if you're carb counting, don't go that route. I think it's just more for the zero alcohol thing. If you want to go low carbs, you should just get like Old Milwaukee Light, Milwaukee's Best Light, Michelob Ultra, if you're wanting to be fancy. But Milwaukee's Best Light is probably your cheapest low carb beer, you know. And some people may want to turn their nose up at it, but if you want to do a blind taste test, let me know if you can taste the difference between that and Miller Lite, or you know, Keystone Light, Natural Light, Bud Light, any of them. It's probably harder than you think to tell the difference between the two. So yeah, anyway, there's not much to be said. There is a long history with this beer. I'm sure it's done its fair share of advertising back in the 70s and 80s and all that stuff. And I think they used to make an Old Milwaukee Ice. I don't know if they ever did like a malt liquor, like a high, strong version of Old Milwaukee, but I know they did an ice beer. I've seen people do reviews on it somewhat recently. So it's still out there. I think they call it OM Ice. Ron J from Louisiana Beer Reviews, I've seen you do it. So if anybody out there has any other, which if it's not on the website, maybe you caught a tail end right before they discontinued it. Yeah, because it's not on the website anymore. Yeah, so this light and NA. And it's kind of like what they had with Pabst. Well, they have Pabst Extra. They have Pabst Easy, which I haven't seen that. And then they make a Pabst. Pabst does start making NA as well. I have yet to see that. If I see it, I might have to try it just to get, like I say, cross it off the list. But yeah, for the price, it was fine. As I tout many times, I like the 60-ounce cans better. I don't see that with this beer. If the price was right, I would buy it. But the price is right for a 12-ounce. These go pretty quickly. So yeah, I have nothing disparaging to say about it. Pretty cool vintage design. The last time I had this was probably it was probably around 2018 or something like that. I got invited to a cabin with some friends, and I bought this, and they had the pinup girls, like paintings, like the throwback from like the 50s and stuff like that on their cans. So it was kind of cool. So that's probably the last time I remember buying this. So it's been several years since I've had this. So thank you guys for watching. If you guys have any thoughts, ideas, or experience with Old Milwaukee, if there's something you prefer over Old Milwaukee, or if you actually think this is superior of a product, let me know in the comments. I'd like to hear what you guys' point of view is on Old Milwaukee. Definitely a working class beer. So anyways, thanks for sticking around for this video, and I will see you guys later.